They say pleasure is the reward. But what if that's just a disguise? What if the chocolate you crave, the scroll you can't stop, the lust you chase, and even the laughter are just shadows? Clever distractions, hiding something raw, something ancient, something painful beneath the surface. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you felt full, not your stomach, but your soul? When was the last time you didn't need anything more? Not just entertained, not just satisfied, but deeply still, quiet, unmoved by craving. Because here's the truth. We live in an age of pleasure, but we're starving inside. Carl Jung warned us, the things we chase for comfort are often the same things stopping us from healing. And today, you're going to see pleasure like you've never seen it before. Let's begin. Imagine this. You wake up. First thing, your hand reaches for your phone. You don't even know why. No emergency, no real reason, but the habit is stronger than hunger. You scroll. A reel makes you smile for 3 seconds. You laugh, then forget it ever happened. Then another reel, and another, and another. And somewhere between them, the day disappears. But that strange, empty ache, it stays. You finally put the phone down, maybe grab something to eat, something sweet, salty, or both. You weren't hungry. You just needed something. But what you needed wasn't food. It wasn't even dopamine. It was silence. It was an escape. It was a moment of peace from the storm you've never had words for. Now let's look at it the way Jung did. He said, each of us carries a shadow, a hidden self we keep buried deep inside. And pleasure, distraction, they're the shovels. You eat, not because you're hungry. You scroll, not because you're curious. You desire, not because you love. You're not choosing joy. You're choosing numbness. Here's the painful truth. Most of what we call pleasure isn't pleasure. It's just relief from the discomfort of self-awareness. But that relief comes at a cost, because every hit of artificial pleasure deepens your hunger for something real. And when that real thing never comes, you start to feel broken. But you're not. You're just unaware. Unaware that you've been trained to confuse escape with enjoyment. Unaware that the pleasure you chase is often not the cure, but a symptom. And now, let me take you deeper. You're 6 years old. You cry. No one listens. So you learn, feeling bad gets me nothing. But when you smile, when you perform, when you distract yourself, people approve, and that reward sticks. So you repeat it for years, until adulthood, where your pain becomes unspoken, and your pleasures become loud. Louder than your loneliness, louder than your fear, louder than the child inside you who just wanted to be held. But here's what most people never realize. Pleasure has memory. Every time you use it to silence pain, you train your body to fear stillness. Stillness becomes unbearable. That's why you can't sit alone, why you need music in the shower, why silence feels like punishment. And Jung knew this. He saw how pleasure, when misused, becomes an enemy of the soul. Not because pleasure is evil, but because we misuse it. The real enemy is the avoidance it allows. Now, before we go further, I want you to do something. If this resonates, if you've ever felt that strange guilt after indulging in something that was supposed to bring joy, subscribe. Not just because it helps this message reach more people, but because you are not alone in this. And comment below, what moment hit you the hardest so far? Because it's not weakness to admit it. It's strength to witness it. Now, let me show you the trap. Imagine someone walking through a desert, chasing mirages. Each time they run toward one, it vanishes. But they don't stop. They just believe the next one will be real. That's what pleasure is, when it comes without purpose. And here's the irony. Real pleasure, the kind that actually feeds your soul, is often quiet. It doesn't demand. It doesn't distract. It doesn't numb. It expands you. It's in a deep conversation. It's in finishing something you feared. It's in waking up and realizing you no longer need the thing that once controlled you. But we don't crave that kind, because it's not easy. And yet, it's the only kind worth craving. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And pleasure is the most beautiful absurdity we've ever invented." Let's keep going. Let's rewind. You're a child again. You fall and scrape your knee. It stings. You cry. And someone says, "Here, have a cookie. Don't cry." Or, "Stop crying. Look, a cartoon's on." That moment stays with you, not consciously, but neurologically. Your brain learns pain equals punishment. Feeling sucks weakness. Solution equals pleasure. You grow up, and without even realizing it, you become fluent in the art of distraction. Pleasure becomes your language. It speaks for you when you're too scared to say, "I'm not okay." It dances for you when you're too tired to admit, "I'm empty." It smiles for you when all you want to do is scream. But no one tells you the cost. Every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you drift a little further from who you really are. Carl Jung once warned, "When the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder." And isn't that exactly what pleasure has become? The loudest thing in our lives. The scroll, the ping, the buzz, the binge, all screaming. So you don't have to listen. But listen to what? To the ache underneath, to the quiet need for meaning, to the desire to feel seen, to the loneliness we never had words for. You see, pleasure isn't evil. In fact, it's sacred when it's intentional. But when it becomes a replacement for presence, it becomes poison. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty after giving in to pleasure? After watching one more episode? Texting someone you know you shouldn't? Buying something you didn't really want? Eating when you weren't even hungry? That guilt isn't because you did something wrong. It's because some deeper part of you knows. You weren't truly fed. You just escaped the hunger. This is where people completely misunderstand Jung. They think shadow work means becoming darker, more intense, more edgy. But that's not the point. Shadow work means looking at the exact moment you betrayed yourself for comfort and saying, "I see you. I forgive you. But I choose truth, not escape." Let me tell you a story. There was someone who couldn't stop chasing relationships. They called themselves a hopeless romantic. Every love started fast, intense, obsessive, and everyone ended the same, broken and confused. When asked why they couldn't stop falling, they said, "I just love love." But that wasn't it. What they really loved was distraction. Because when they were alone, the silence got too loud. They had never learned how to sit with their pain. So pleasure became their plaster, until it couldn't hold anymore. And that story? It's not rare. It's the hidden story of millions. People who confuse longing with love, scrolling with joy, numbing with healing. And the real danger isn't that pleasure exists. The danger is never asking why we need it so badly. Here's the lie we've been sold. Pleasure is peace. Pleasure is power. Pleasure is healing. Pleasure is a tool. And every tool, if misused, becomes a weapon, usually against yourself. Now, let's flip the script. Think back to the last time you resisted temptation. You delayed gratification. You ignored the impulse to click, text, or consume. And afterward, you felt proud. Why? Because discipline isn't control. It's self-trust, and self-trust feels better than any high. When you trust yourself, pleasure no longer owns you. You own it. You choose it, not as an escape, but as a celebration. Now imagine this. You walk into a silent room. No phone, no noise, just you. And instead of anxiety, you feel home. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are enough. That's what Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole, not by denying parts of yourself, but by integrating them, by being able to feel pleasure without needing it to survive, by being able to sit in silence and feel at peace. That's the goal. But to get there, you must stop chasing the next fix. You have to turn down the volume and listen to what your cravings are covering up. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding when I reach for this phone? What emotion am I afraid of when I eat, scroll, or shop? And instead of judging those moments, witness them. Say, I see you, and I choose truth over escape. Because real pleasure isn't instant. It's earned. It's in the deep laugh with someone who gets you. It's in the rest after meaningful work. It's in being seen, not just swiped. Let's pause. If anything in this message made you uncomfortable, that's good. That discomfort is called awakening. It's quiet. It's personal. It doesn't need applause. Now you face a choice. Keep numbing the ache with fast pleasures. Or meet yourself fully, bravely. No anesthesia, no filters. Jung believed our greatest suffering doesn't come from trauma. It comes from our refusal to face what that trauma left behind. And pleasure, when used unconsciously, makes sure we never do. But now you see it. So what will you do? Let's go deeper. By now, you've heard the warnings. You've felt something inside you nod in quiet agreement. The illusions are cracking, and what's underneath isn't comforting. It's uncomfortable, brutally honest. Because here's the moment everyone avoids. The part where pleasure is no longer fun, and the truth finally shows its face. To reclaim your life from shallow highs, you must confront a brutal realization. You've been betraying yourself, not in one big dramatic moment, but in the subtle, silent ways. In every just 5 more minutes, in every time you chose escape over reflection, in every moment you confused numbing with joy, you told yourself, this feels good. But it wasn't good. It was just a distraction. You weren't thriving. You were surviving. But here's the good news. This isn't shame. It's your awakening. You are not weak for craving comfort. You are not broken for avoiding pain. You are doing what humans do, seeking relief. But now, you're ready for something higher, real peace. Because once you see the trap for what it is, the spell breaks. That quick dopamine hit doesn't feel as satisfying. That endless scroll starts to feel hollow. The hookup, the sugar, the noise, none of it fills the silence. And that silence, it's not empty. It's where the real you has been waiting. Here's an image for you. Imagine your life as a house, and inside it waits a child, your inner self, the honest part of you, the forgotten one. But instead of going inside to sit with them, you build a carnival on the front lawn. Music, flashing lights, junk food, anything to avoid going in. That's what false pleasure does. It makes the outside of your life loud enough, so you never have to face what's inside. But healing, real, painful, transformative healing, is stepping through that quiet front door, sitting beside that child and whispering, I see you. I'm here now. That's what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of shadow work. He didn't want us addicted to silence. He wanted us unafraid of it. Because silence isn't lifeless. Silence is where all the truth we've buried starts to speak. And now we reach the final lie. The one society feeds us like candy. That pleasure is freedom. that happiness is constant stimulation, that the more you indulge, the more alive you are. But real freedom? It's not about doing whatever you want. It's about not needing to. You don't need the sugar. You don't need the praise. You don't need the next thrill to feel alive. Because true pleasure is this: sitting with yourself in stillness and feeling complete. You're not running. You're not numbing. You're present, and it feels good, not because it's a high, but because it's whole. And when you get there, something profound happens. You stop chasing the high because you've finally found the peace. And people will notice. They'll say you've changed. You'll speak more slowly. You'll pause before answering. You'll laugh less often. But when you do, it will come from a deeper place. And they'll ask, why don't you drink like you used to? Why are you off social media? Why don't you reply right away anymore? And you'll smile, not out of arrogance, but because you know something they don't. You're not avoiding life anymore. You're living it, fully, consciously, quietly. You've stopped running from yourself. You've stopped chasing empty highs. You are simply present. And that, more than anything else, unsettles people. Because in a world addicted to stimulation, presence is power. A person who no longer needs pleasure to feel okay cannot be manipulated. They're not distracted. They're not desperate. They're not controlled by invisible strings. Marketing loses its grip. Addictions lose their edge. The constant hunger for more, silenced by stillness. And that stillness becomes rebellion, not loud, not aggressive, just undeniable. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And who you are is not a dopamine addict, not a bundle of urges, not a consumer of feelings. You are a creator of meaning. And meaning isn't always soft or sweet. It doesn't always feel good. Often it feels like work, like discipline, like sacrifice. But it nourishes you. It grounds you. It gives you something pleasure never could: depth. So next time the craving strikes, pause. Not to resist it, not to suppress it, but to ask a different question. What do I truly need right now? That one question breaks the loop. It puts the power back in your hands. It reminds you, you are not your craving. You are the one who decides how and whether to feed it. So let me leave you with this. You'll never look at pleasure the same way again. Not because it's bad, but because now you see it clearly. You'll still laugh. You'll still love. You'll still enjoy the sweetness of life. But now, it won't own you. You'll choose joy with awareness. You'll protect your peace. You'll stop trading it for comfort. And that awareness, it'll make your joy sacred, your connections honest, your habits solid, and your silence golden. Because in the end, the only pleasure worth having is the kind you no longer need to chase. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Hit that like button, not for the algorithm, but to remind yourself you're choosing awareness over escape. Subscribe for more content that doesn't just entertain, but awakens. And in the comments, tell me, what pleasure are you ready to stop chasing? Because your healing doesn't start with answers. It starts with honest questions.